it seems likely that we are on the precipice of transformative change.
The students are hungry for this kind of knowledge. They want it.
These issues are really at the core of understanding how knowledge has been reproduced, how we've gotten to where we are now.
One of the things that's encouraging about the movement now is there's this emergence, kind of solidification of an understanding of white supremacy as a system, and a shift away from earlier sort of moments where the inclination was to think of racism as a sort of individual level psychological problem. Now we're seeing really diverse groups of people in terms of race and ethnicity and social class coming out together and making points about structural racism. David and I are both also social movement researchers, and we've both done a lot of research on social movements. That really shapes, I think, how we're probably interpreting what's happening today, and reading it as not a kind of spontaneous outburst, but really something that's been building for many, many years.
People will use vague phrases like the time was right and things like that, but really what we're really standing on the shoulders of is the hard and long work that people have been doing to try to build this consciousness. We can think about racism structurally, as Geoff's saying, rather than see it as the act of a particular bad apple. It's been a long road to get to a point where that could be recognized, not only by activists in certain times and places, but in a broad way. And so when we see this mobilization rising up now, to see protests that occur in St. Louis City, certainly, but then in St. Charles and in Creve Coeur and in Clayton yesterday and various places, you see such a broad swath of people recognizing that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, not just as a discrete issue, but as something deep and systemic.
This is also a time where we're focusing not just on the fast violences, these things that we see on social media, but these slow violences, the ways in which communities have been hurt over time, and ways that have been more invisible. And I think this is a time where we are recognizing that not everyone has the same rights to their humanity. And that is unacceptable. And I think that those conversations are being had, so that we not only understand that it is a tragedy that a person cannot, walk down the street and potentially have a negative altercation with a police officer that could lead to their death, but also it's a tragedy that somebody has to worry about that every day when they leave to go to work, and that their loved ones have to worry about that for them. I think these kinds of conversations are being had more, and I think people are starting to get that. And again, we have so many people and movements to thank for that work.
This is also pointing out how important the Black Lives Matter movement has been in going back to the wake of the killing of Michael Brown. I think people were dismissive of hashtag movement and this idea that it wasn't organized. When we see how, in fact, that movement created networks, created language, a framing that made it much more possible for this mass mobilization to occur, not only in the United States right now, but globally. Black Lives Matter movement deserves a great deal of credit for that.
I'm hopeful that a couple of things will happen moving forward when we think about the university. And one of them is, I hope that students will have an experience at WashU and at other universities where these kinds of themes are infused through the entire curriculum. It won't just be students in particular departments or with particular majors that engage these issues that are at the core of that discipline, let's say, but a broader recognition that no matter what you're teaching, these issues are really at the core of understanding how knowledge has been reproduced, how we've gotten to where we are now. When we talk about white supremacy, this is something that has shaped basically every disciplinary focus we can think of. And so what I hope will happen is that students will feel like they have a holistic space to understand this, and they'll see connections between our campus community and the broader community as it engages these issues.
And I would like to add that the students are hungry for this kind of knowledge. They want it. They take classes. They ask for classes around these issues. I teach a class called Sick Society, which is always over-enrolled, as Geoff and David teach their other classes that engage with the topics that we study. And we need to be supporting faculty. We have an amazing cadre of faculty across campuses that do work in this area in very different ways: intervention work, historical work, psychological work, etc., that need to be supported, especially our junior faculty and faculty of color.
I'd like to echo, I think, a very important point that Hetty and David both make, which is the need for the university to figure out ways to sort of dissolve some of its barriers that prevent different disciplines from engaging with each other in a kind of deep and sustained ways. I teach in African and African American studies primarily, and one thing I'd point out is that I get very few white students in my classes. I think many, and I hope this is something that will change in the wake of these events, I think many white Americans, I don't just mean WashU students, tend to think of African and African American studies as something that's irrelevant to them. And I think these events point out how a deep engagement with the Black experience that centers the Black experience and knowledge that comes from it is meaningful to all of us, is valuable to all of us.
As a person who identifies as African American and Latina, I've been doing this since I started. This isn't my academic vocation. It's personal to me. I want to continue to do what I'm doing and support others who want to move in that direction too. I want faculty of color to be recognized for the work that they have done in the past, to build centers and to do the work to center race in their teaching and their research. And I want that to be recognized, and I want support for people who are doing that work, and I want to support others who want to be part of that momentum, whether it's in their teaching or research.
Like Hetty, I'm located in the Department of Sociology, and this is a department that was reformed in 2015 with an express mission to further our understandings of the origins and reproduction of social inequality, but also to apply that knowledge to address issues of pressing public concern. It's a time of great challenge, but it's also a space within which we can double down on this mission to say that it's impossible to think about a vibrant university moving forward that doesn't engage these pressing issues in a way that's relevant to students, relevant to the community, and relevant to all of us as we work together.
I think probably for me, what I'm most enthusiastic about is figuring out ways to enhance the university's potential to deliver on this mission of being in and for St. Louis and being an engine of transformative change.